we go. Well, Sal, finally some good news. Please tell us all about it.
All right, Bruce, and good afternoon to you. I do have some good news, but I'd like this to cover two pieces of old business before I get into the new business. At my last report, I made reference to the fact that we were driving a school bus, and that some people were offended by the fact that I was implying that some of our trainers were children, and that was not the case. I certainly was just using it as an analogy to show that all of us, including the people on the board and me, were saying, are we there yet? It was just an analogy to show how people who go on a class trip do that. I meant no insult to any of our trainers. I certainly recognize that they are adults, that they do worry about the horses, they do worry about their owners, they do worry about their families and the livelihood they had. So that was I clearly understand that they are adults. It's because they are adults that Mike Ballezzi and I and the rest of the staff and the board members have worked all these years to give them better working conditions, better rights, better health care, pensions, and better purses. So we do recognize that. The second piece of all business is I made a mathematical error in computing what the contribution would be to if we had simulcasting of 10 million. I should be using a calculator. Instead, I used my brain and dropped a zero in there. But the truth is that's irrelevant now, because at the time that those things were occurring, they were the only game in town. We will not be the only game in town, so that we're just going to be having to compete with all the other tracks that are open for simulcasting. So that it was a mistake. It was an error, but it's irrelevant at this point because we're not going to be alone. So I just wanted to get those two things out of the way. Okay, so I do have some new business, and I guess, again, want to go back a little bit and tell people that 2 weeks ago, there was a meeting held with the governor's staff and the medical advisors, and they indicated that if we got them the protocols, they would look at them, and we expected to get the results. The next day on Friday, the Racing Commission put together the final protocols with inputs from all 6 of the racetracks, as well as the commission staff. With the protocols would apply to the commission employees working at the tracks, as well as the horsemen and the operators of the track. They were approved over that weekend by the Racing Commission, so that by 10 o'clock on Monday, they were finalized. They were then sent to the health officials. We were hoping for a result by Friday of that week, which was last Friday. On Thursday, we got a letter saying they had them, but they had some questions, but they would need more time. We then, on Monday, were told that they had more questions, so we then had a Tuesday conference call with them in which we answered those questions, made slight changes to the protocols, and we're expecting approval. That approval did not come until 8 o'clock last night, but basically what it says is that we can go ahead and open the tracks, subject to the protocols that we submitted being implemented and maintained, and I'll come back to that later. I just want to explain to everyone that while I knew they were coming, I actually wanted to wait to see the document, to physically see it, so I knew that it was there, and also whether or not they had put any effective dates beyond yesterday in there, and whether or not they had put any other conditions besides the implementation of the protocols in there. When I finally did see it, it was dated yesterday, so it's effective yesterday, and there are no other conditions except for maintaining the protocols. So I then was able to tell everyone that existed. So that, again, to repeat, we can open, subject to finding a date with the track to open, but we can open, but we have to have the protocols implemented and maintained. I've been spending most of today with discussions with the track management, and we've come to an agreement that we will open on June 22nd. And we'll take entries for June 22nd on June 17th. So next Wednesday, we'll be taking entries for our first opening on June 22nd. We tried to do it earlier. But the implementation requires not only training, calling back the furloughed employees, training them, but also buying certain equipment. And they just need a time frame to get that done. So while we tried to really make it Monday or Wednesday of next week, it just didn't work out with the delays that occurred in hearing from the health department. So it will happen on the 22nd, will be our first race, again, entering on the 17th. Our purses initially will be $180,000 per day. I want to explain there that we're going to be running 3 days a week, including through August, when we normally shut down for 3 weeks, through the end of the year. We could have made our purses closer to what they actually were before the pandemic, but we would have to have run 2 days a week. The board made the decision that having more opportunities to earn purses was better than having less opportunities but higher purses. So we're going to be running for $180,000 a day for 3 days. We could have run for 2 days at $270,000 a day, but we're going to run 3 days. Just so everybody understands, I want them to know what affects the amount of purses that we have. One, of course, is what the slot machines will produce. And since the casinos aren't yet open and we have no idea what that's going to produce, we've had to make certain assumptions. Luckily, the PTHA has some funds in reserve, is what we're going to be using to open, because we will have no revenues from the casino for the early part of that. But that affects it. What we take in once we reopen will affect whether our purses will go up or not. Other things that affect it are the fact that the state, under this agriculture, helping agriculture, takes monies off the top before we get our purse money. So that about $19,000 is taken off for the fairs and the farm show and for research by the University of Pennsylvania before we ever get any money statewide. That's statewide, not just Parx. Another $11 million is taken out statewide for testing. The problem is both that 19 million and the 11 million and the 2 million for promotion that's taken out is not based on a percentage of what we do. It's based, except for the promotion money, it's really based on a lump sum of whatever we do. So that if we, prior to the pandemic, we were doing about 230 to 240 million statewide. They were taking about 31, 32 million of that off. Now, if we drop that in half and only do half that, they still take the 32 million off. It doesn't go down. So really the purses are affected by how much is taken off the top, off of what our monies from the slots is. So that's still up in the air. We'll hope the casinos will open soon, but the amount we're going to be able to increase is going to depend on how well we do at the casino. So, but that right now we're staying at 180,000. We still expect to have an owner bonus. We're having conversations about that next week. We're hoping that it'll be the same 40% that it was before, but it could be only 20 or something between 20 and 40, depending on how much is made available to the breeders. We still will have Pennsylvania Day at the races, and that detail will be worked out next week too. We also expect to have, we haven't canceled the open races like the Cotillion and the Pennsylvania Derby, but that's going to depend on two factors. One, how much money we have for it, and two, whether we can make it work with the rescheduling of the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness and the present schedule of the Breeders' Cup. So that's up in the air. We don't have an answer to that. So again, we're going to open the 22nd. We're going to have 180,000 per day. We're going to have PA owners bonuses, but we don't know what that amount will be. The key thing I want to point out now, though, is that I use the word implement and maintain. So we have to implement the protocols. We have to maintain them. Part of what will be done is there will be safety inspectors assigned to each track. Those people will walk around and make sure that we are complying with the protocols, including wearing masks, including social distancing, and all the other stuff that's in there. But the two primary things are going to be wearing masks and social distancing. If they see violations of that, they may tell those people that they may give them a warning, but they see it again, they may expel them from the track and say, you have to leave. If they see it's broad enough, and they may actually just say, you didn't do it. You didn't follow the protocols. We're going to shut you down. I know that there are lots of different points of view out there about whether or not the pandemic is a real one, or whether it's serious, or whether it's unconstitutional to have these regulations, or whether it's a violation of one's freedom to make their own choices. I respect all of those opinions. I respect the fact that you're entitled to those opinions, but we are a regulated industry. We're regulated by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They're letting us open provided we follow these protocols. If we don't do it, we're going to jeopardize the staying open going forward. So I plead with all of you, no matter what your point of view is, and I certainly do respect your point of view, please follow the regulations. Please wear masks. Please have social distancing, because what you do will not only affect your health, but it could also affect the health of the horse racing industry at Parx if we end up not following the protocols. So that's a very important message I want to get out there. But again, it's a day to be happy, to celebrate. We are finally reopening. I want to thank Mike Ballezzi and his staff and our board for their support during this time. I want to thank the Pennsylvania Racing Commission for acting quickly to get these protocols finalized and off to the health people. I want to congratulate and thank the Parx management for working with us to get to this point. So I think we have a lot of good news. Let's just be responsible and do what we have to do to keep us open and make this healthy and get back to where we were before the pandemic. Again, I thank all of you for your patience. I think we're home, or soon we'll be home. And congratulations to all. And again, thank you all.
Thanks so much, Sal. You have a great day.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce.